Hey HDDA and welcome to Against the Storm. Against the Storm is a roguelite city builder game. Now, I'm usually not a huge fan of roguelite games, but Against the Storm is actually really original, and I've been enjoying this game very much over the past few weeks playing it in early access. It is going to be officially released on the 1st of November, so I figured why not show it to you guys and walk you through a game so you can check out for yourself if this is something you're interested in. Now, when you pick out your starting location for a village, you can pretty much pick whatever location you want. Different locations will give you different buffs and different rewards. As you can see, for example, over here, I get 42 materials as a bonus, but there might be zones, for example, over here, I actually get 48. Now, initially, the variance will be very small, 36 over here, for example, but also the buffs will vary. So basically, the harder the location is that you pick, the larger the reward. But if you don't want to have a hard time, you can just pick an easier location and still get rewarded for that. Still upgrades your things, etc. Now, there's also special locations on the map, like for example over here, that give you special modifiers to the environment of the new location that you start out in. So, for example, this specific modification gives you an extra chance to get fertile grounds, which you use to make farms. And as you can see, there's a lot of question marks on the map, and the map is huge, by the way, which will all be similar locations with certain buffs. You might find items, etc., etc. So, all in all, it's basically up to you to decide in which direction you're going to expand, and depending on how successful you are, you will get further and further on the map. Now, I've been actually playtesting this for a little bit, so as you can see, I'm already halfway through my time in this particular playthrough. Normally, you would have a couple of towns by now, so don't look at that too much. But don't worry, you don't lose all your progress, because every time you complete will give you both experience and materials that you use to upgrade the Smoldering City. These upgrades will ensure you can build more and more complex towns as you go, allowing you to push out further and further during each rotation. Now, if you look at the tech tree over here, the unlock tree, you can see there's a massive amount of things you can unlock, which vary from just giving you a power boost to actually unlocking new game mechanics. And it's actually really nice to play that way, because the game actually adds more complexity as you go, giving you access to those new mechanics, new buildings, new starting options, etc. So you don't get overwhelmed initially, but once you kind of get the hang of it, you can unlock new things and basically become more powerful as you go, which is kind of the way every roguelite works, but I think it's really well done in this particular game. When you pick a starting location for your town, you already need to make a few important decisions before you even get started building. You decide who to bring in your caravan, which is important because different races have different strengths and weaknesses. And you also get to pick what items to bring with you. Now, both of these things will actually be adjusted and upgraded as you upgrade the Smoldering City. So even though it starts out pretty simple, it will get more and more complex, but also more powerful later on as you play the game. Now, you also have an overview of all the modifiers that apply to this specific area, what type of things you can actually find over here. You won't have all the details before you start, but at least gives you an idea of how difficult this specific level is going to be if you pick this location. Speaking of difficulty, you can actually adjust the difficulty in this game every time you play, so per level basically. And the higher the difficulty, the better the rewards, of course. Also, the harder it will be overall. But as you can see, I'm getting a lot more resource and a lot more experience if I complete this level on a higher difficulty than when I lower that. But I still get rewarded even on the lower difficulty. So you can progress in whatever way and at whatever speed you prefer. Once you get into the game, you will actually know all the details on the buffs as well as the debuffs you get in this specific zone, so you can figure out how that will impact your strategy. And speaking of strategy, how do you win this game? Well, you actually get orders from the queen, and the queen in the Smoldering City is not the most patient woman. So you will actually have increasing impatience as you play, and if this ever reaches the full amount, you will lose this particular game. Now, how to win the game is actually the opposite bar, so you will have reputation, and if you are able to max out your reputation, you will win the game and move on to the next town as well. Now, how do you gain reputation? The main way of actually getting reputation is completing orders from the queen. So every time you will initially unlock 3 orders, and then later on in the game you unlock some more. And these orders basically give you an objective. And if you complete that objective, you will get a reward with a bunch of resources, you get some reputation, and you also tend to unlock new blueprints, which I will get to in a moment. Now, it's very important to actually look at the objectives that you get, figure out which of those are easiest to complete or harder to complete. Of course, the rewards is also something that you could take into account. For example, over here I have a objective to make 10 planks. That's very straightforward, so I could pick that one. Or I could opt to keep my beavers resolve above 16 for 30 seconds, which is a lot harder to do, but also get better rewards. So it's completely up to me which one I pick. Now, you can also pick different ones, of course. You will have a couple of options, so you're not stuck if you get 2 bad choices that you might not be able to complete. There's always a couple more to pick from. The second way to get high reputation is by increasing the resolve of your villagers. Now, depending on your type of villagers that you have, they will have different needs. So for example, the humans over here want jerky, they want biscuits, they want pie. Basically, they want all the good stuff. And if you are able to give that to them, their resolve will increase. If you get your resolve at the high enough level, for example, over here, you will actually need to increase your resolve to stuff. So how do you complete all those things? You're able to pick buildings from a generated list, and this will basically tune into the orders that you got. You might want to produce certain items to complete those orders, and you won't actually have access to all the buildings from the get-go. You will need to pick those from the blueprints. So making sure you pick the right things here that will actually help you complete your orders is definitely important. You can see from the stars that some buildings are better to produce certain items than others. That basically means you need less inputs to get the same outputs. And different buildings will produce different things. So there's actually a lot of buildings, for example, that produce biscuits. As you can see, the cookhouse and the bakery produce biscuits, but they produce those items in different combinations. And in this case, the star rating is the same for all of my buildings, but there are also 1-star and 3-star items, for example. So it's very important also to pick the ones that are best for your certain situation. You do not get an unlimited amount of blueprints. As you can see, you only start out with 3, but as you gain more reputation, you get awarded with new blueprints, which will help you complete more orders in turn. The queen is not only impatient, but she will also help you out. So you are able to pick certain cornerstones, as they call it. It's basically general global buffs to certain things that you might be doing in the game. Now, these are completely random as well, so it's really important to pick buffs that will actually help you progress with the strategy you're going for. So for example, over here I have something that will help me with metal and ore production, but if I'm not actually doing anything with metal or ore, picking this is probably not going to be that useful. On the other hand, if I am planning to do that at some point in this particular town, then picking this up will be a huge help to actually completing this specific level successfully. So now that we've covered the basics, how do we actually build our village? Well, as you can see, we start out with a small little zone. I already built 1 woodcutter, because the woodcutters are going to be vital to actually expanding. We can mark up trees to be cut down, and once we do and we gain access to one of these small glades over here, that will actually give us access to more resources. Initially, we start out with not too much area to build in, only a couple of different basic resources. But cutting down these trees will actually make sure that we are able to reach out further and further. Now, these small areas will only contain some basic resources typically, might include some small positive events. Nothing too special, so low risk, low reward. But if you want more interesting stuff, you will need to expand to dangerous glades or even, and let's find some, forbidden glades. Now, forbidden glades are the highest difficulty types of events. They are the largest glades, so it will give you access to a lot of building room. They will have a lot of resources in there as well, but there will also be negative events in here that you will need to deal with very quickly if you don't want to lose the game. The dangerous glades over here are kind of in between. They will also have negative events in there that you'll need to deal with. They will have a moderate amount of rewards in there. So basically it's up to you to pick whether you stick to the safe glades, and as you can see there's a lot of those around here as well, or if you go for the more dangerous, high risk, high reward type of zones. Now, there might be all kinds of different events in here. There might be events in here that actually increase the impatience of the queen. There might be something that actually tries to kill your villagers. Generally speaking, you just want to make sure that before you access this, you're actually ready for that. Now, building a town in this game is actually a very delicate thing. All these buildings have a certain range in which they operate, so you will need to make sure you place them wherever they need to go. The nice thing about this is actually that you can easily move all your buildings. There's no cost associated to that whatsoever, so that makes it really flexible. But the real challenge comes in actually making sure where your villagers are working. You only start out with a small amount of villagers, so currently I have 11 of them. And different villages will want to work in different places. Beavers, for example, like woodcutting. Hey, how surprising. But other types of races will want to work in different places. Now, we currently only have beavers and humans, but there will also be, for example, reptiles that like working in warm buildings, like working with meat. Humans like to farm. You can let everyone work wherever, so you're not bound to certain restrictions in that regard, but there is definitely more or less efficient ways to build things. Now, something that's also worth taking into account, you only have a limited amount of workers. So right now, as you can see, I only set up about 4 different production buildings, but I've also already assigned almost all my villagers to a building. So if I build one more building, I'm going to have to pick and choose if I'm gonna have someone, for example, cutting wood, or if that person is going to gather food, baking pies, making biscuits, making clothes. You get the point. You really need to make sure that you spend the few workers you have in a way that's as efficient as possible, and that will change as you are progressing through a level. Last but not least, you are actually going to be able to expand the amount of villagers you have naturally as well. So every now and then you will actually have people wanting to join your city. As you can see, you have multiple options. Right now I can pick from some beavers and a human, or a reptile and 2 humans, different amounts of resources that will come along with that. And that is a very nice way to expand your town. Now, you do have to keep in mind that you will actually need to feed these villagers as well, keep them happy, make sure they're sheltered, they have a home to live in. So think before you accept too many people into your village, otherwise you're going to have some trouble. And that concludes this little sneak peek of Against the Storm. I hope you found this useful, so let me know in the comments and like the video if you did. If you want to know more about this game or want to see some more of this game in action, check out the gameplay video I made where I go through an entire level in more detail. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. If you're still here, you're awesome, and I hope to catch you in the next one.